Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to our weekly review of how religion impacts humanity. This week's headlines: France urges citizens to leave Pakistan amid anti-French protests. A mob ransacked a Hindu temple in Pakistan's Rawalpindi district. Vladimir Putin solidifies Russia's same-sex marriage ban for generations to come. A Canadian church was shut down and fenced off for not complying with COVID-19 lockdown orders. The inquest into the Fishmongers Hall terror attack began on Monday. The Taliban reiterate their stance on the Islamic System and reject democracy. A young woman was publicly flogged by the Taliban. Arkansas advances a bill to let schools teach creationism. A would-be rap star is jailed for an IS-inspired terror plot. Cancel culture is a parasite that consumes liberty, says Archbishop Justin Welby. Anti-Islamist Maryam Namazie defies Ramadan by publicly dancing. In October last year, French President Emmanuel Macron strongly defended freedom of expression after the beheading of a teacher who showed cartoons of Muhammad during a class discussion. This prompted anger in parts of the Muslim world, including Pakistan, shown in green on this map, where there were calls for a boycott of French goods. Protests escalated after the Pakistani government arrested Saad Hussein Rizvi, leader of the hardline political party Tehreek-e-Labbaik, which has called for the expulsion of the French ambassador. 2 police officers died this week in clashes with protesters. France has urged all its citizens in Pakistan to leave the country temporarily. In yet another example of religious intolerance in Pakistan, a mob ransacked a Hindu temple in Rawalpindi city. Pakistani journalist Mubashir Zaidi tweeted, "A mob ransacked a 74-year-old Hindu temple in Rawalpindi last night, hours before the holy celebrations began. Police registered a case against 10 to 15 unknown people. Hindus Council condemned the incident and demanded the arrest of culprits." The ban on marriage equality, defining marriage as exclusively between a man and a woman, is one of a group of constitutional reforms which were voted on by the Russian public last year. The changes, backed by nearly 78% of Russians in the vote, also included giving President Putin the power to run for president 2 more times, meaning he could potentially remain Russia's leader until 2036. They also give the president lifetime immunity from prosecution, placing Russian law above international norms, and specify a belief in God as a core value of the country, according to AP News. On Monday, the 5th of April, Putin officially signed the constitutional amendments into law. Same-sex marriage is already illegal in Russia, so the new wording in the constitution simply makes it even harder for marriage equality to ever become a reality. Police in Canada have placed metal fencing around a church that's led by a pastor who was jailed for holding worship services that violated provincial lockdown rules. This report from our Canadian correspondent, David Rand.
Police in the Canadian province of Alberta have placed metal fencing around a church that's led by a pastor who was jailed for holding worship services that violated provincial lockdowns in order to physically shut it down until it can demonstrate the ability to comply with the ongoing COVID-19 restrictions. Officials have accused Grace Life of violating public health guidelines on multiple occasions by holding in-person worship services where attendees did not social distance or wear face masks. Last month, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police charged the church as an entity for holding worship services in February that exceeded the limit of 15% capacity. Quote, with COVID-19 cases increasing and the more easily transmitted and potentially more severe variants becoming dominant, there is an urgent need to minimize spread to protect all Albertans. End of quote. Alberta Health Services said in a statement, according to the Epic Times. In February, Grace Life Church pastor James Coates turned himself in to authorities for violating ongoing lockdown restrictions that, among other things, limited in-person worship gatherings to no more than 15% capacity. He was released in March, with his next court date being May 3rd. This is David Rand reporting from Canada.
An inquest for the victims of the Fishmonger Hall terror attack is due to get underway on Monday. Cambridge University graduates Jack Merritt, 25, and Saskia Jones, 23, were killed by convicted terrorist Usman Khan at a prison rehabilitation event near London Bridge on November the 29th, 2019. Khan, 28, who was armed with 2 knives and wore a fake suicide vest, was tackled by members of the public and then shot dead by police on London Bridge. An inquest into the deaths of Mr. Merritt and Ms. Jones is due to start before Coroner Mark Lucraft, QC, at the Guildhall in central London on Monday. In Norway, a man has been charged for his alleged role in plans to carry out 3 extremist attacks in Denmark and London, and for purportedly spreading Islamic State group propaganda on the internet. Authorities believe the 24-year-old man, who wasn't identified, was part of a group that sought to strike a church in England, possibly St. Paul's Cathedral. But British police thwarted the plot. The man was also alleged to be involved in plans for 1 or more attacks in Denmark with help from at least 1 Danish citizen. Those attacks are believed to have been prevented as well. The man has maintained his innocence. If found guilty, he faces up to 21 years in jail. The trial starts in Oslo on May the 18th. In Kabul, Taliban peace negotiators emphasized their stance for an Islamic governing system and rejected a system based on democracy, which is the top demand. Mohammed Naeem, Taliban's political spokesman, claimed that Islamic and democratic systems are in conflict in Afghanistan, shown in gold in this map. Naeem also rejected reports on an interim administration to replace President Ghani, saying neither them nor the government of Afghanistan offered such a demand in the first round of talks. Taliban spokesman said that the insurgents waged 2 decades of war to regain independence and an Islamic system in Afghanistan. Islam, in fact, is in contrast with democracy, and a governing system cannot be based on both of them, Naeem said. We want an Islamic system, and will discuss how to reach this system and how to establish it on the negotiating table, and we want to reach an agreement on it. An Afghan negotiator, Amin Ahmadi, had earlier said that Taliban think human rights, women's rights, and the constitution have no place in Islamic framework. While we are in Afghanistan, Dr. Anarkali Kaur Honaria, Member of Parliament in Afghanistan, reports on this public flogging. A warning, some viewers may find this video distressing. A bill to allow public schools to teach intelligent design as a theory of how the Earth came to be gained the approval of the Arkansas House on Wednesday, despite a 1980s court ruling that bars schools from teaching creationism in science classes. House Bill 1701 by Representative Mary Bentley was sent to the state Senate on a 72-21 vote. The legislation would apply to kindergarten through to 12th grade public and charter schools. Bentley said permission to teach creation is something she's had teachers ask her for since she became a lawmaker. Scientists have been on both sides of this issue for thousands of years, she said, noting that Isaac Newton and Galileo believed in God and biblical creation. Representative Megan Godfrey asked why Bentley didn't go through the state's usual curriculum development process, which includes writing standards for curriculum content. Bentley said her decision stemmed from the lawsuit over Act 590 of 1981. The law mandated that the state give balanced treatment to creation science and evolution science. Back then, US District Judge William R. Overton ruled that the law was unconstitutional and that creation shouldn't be part of a science curriculum. An East London man who called himself the Masked Menace has been jailed for life for plotting a terror attack during the coronavirus pandemic. Islamic State supporter Sayyid Abu bought an 18-inch sword, a knife, balaclavas and body armour online. The 27-year-old from Dagenham was arrested on July the 9th after discussing guns with an undercover police officer. He will serve a 19-year sentence after being found guilty in March of preparing an act of terrorism. Cancel culture is a parasite, according to the Archbishop of Canterbury. Justin Welby makes a defence of free speech in an updated edition of his book, Reimagining Britain. He has added passages that criticise the way Britain is run, praise the Black Lives Matter movement for shedding disturbing lights on British history, and cast doubts over whether exclusive British values really exist. Finally, anti-Islam campaigner Maryam Namazie publicly defies Ramadan, which bans dancing, hugging, kissing, singing and listening to music, by sharing a video of her dancing on Twitter. Watch this. Don't you love the music too? Stay tuned on this channel for live show Ask an Atheist with guests Gordon Campbell, and Tavian Oladapo, starting in about 10 minutes. We will be back with our weekly news review on our platforms at the same time next week. Please like, share, comment, set the notifications, etc. Thank you for watching.